Hey guys and gals, real glad slowly, sitting on the back porch, smoking some LG Peretti Thanksgiving Day and a Morgan Bones Zulu dog in honor of the in-laws just rolling into town, which is also what puts me here on the back porch. As you can probably tell by the title of the video, this video is going to be about stoving tobacco. Specifically, stoving some Peter Stokkebye Bullseye Flake. I was having a conversation with Law and Smoke in the comments of one of his videos yesterday, and he mentioned that he wasn't aware of what stoving was. And it dawned on me that there's not a lot of videos or not a lot of information on YouTube about how to stove tobacco. So what is stoving? Stoving's basically just a cooking process. Usually it's about 200 degrees for tobacco. A lot of times this is done by the manufacturers and or people that are doing the blending, and the process actually cooks the sugars and the tobaccos. That's what makes Virginia's kind of a prime candidate for the stoving process. So I am a home brewer, or used to be more active in home brewing, and one of the best things about home brewing is called the Maillard reaction. And what that is when the sugars begin to caramelize, and that's exactly what happens when you stove tobacco. The sugars in the tobacco caramelize, and the taste profile changes. It's the same reaction that makes steaks so good when you cook something. The sugars in the steak caramelize, and that's what makes the steak taste so good. For tobacco, it's kind of the same thing. Caramelizes the sugars. Virginia has a lot of sugar in it. And the Bullseye Flake is predominantly of Virginia. There's some Cavendish and some Perique in there as well. But the overall process of stoving is pretty simple. I've done it now a couple of times. I did it tonight, and I videotaped the process. And so in just a few minutes, I'll kind of walk you through that process. But at the highest level, stoving is kind of easy to remember for tobacco because it's basically 5 twos. That's not 5, that's 5. 5 twos. What are the twos? 200 degrees, 2 hours, rest for 2 hours, wait for 2 weeks, and then open the jar for 2 hours and let it aerate. Now, you gotta have a little patience, but my opinion, the patience is well worth it. It makes a great tobacco, my opinion, a little bit better, or at least different. I know that's probably a controversy among tobacco connoisseurs, so to speak. Some people call it fast aging of tobacco. And of course, there's no substitute for good old-fashioned age. But if you're in the mood to try something just a little bit different, easy experiment, you can do it in your own kitchen, give it a shot. So I'm going to transition to a couple of videos that will show you the process, show you how I did it, and then hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll give it a taste and share that with you in a part 2 video. So here's how I do it. All right, so step number 1, you're going to get some Peter Stokkebye Luxury Bullseye Flake. This is going to be, I think, about 2 ounces. I want to say that's a 4-ounce ball jar. You're going to take the lid off. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to get some aluminum foil, and you're going to cover the lid with aluminum foil. That foil is actually going to replace the hard metal insert that's part of the ball jar lid. The reason that you're going to do that is because you don't want to risk pressure from the steam that's going to come out of the tobacco during the cook process. You don't want to risk pressure building up inside that jar and breaking it. If that happens and your wife is anything like mine, or your husband, for the gals, you're probably not going to be able to stove tobacco in the house anymore. So the next step, as you can see here, is you're going to preheat the oven to 200 degrees. So this is the first of the twos. Once that reaches 200 degrees, you're going to take the entire ball jar with the aluminum foil and the ring on the outside of the aluminum foil. You're going to place it in the oven, center the racks fine, and then you're going to set a timer. And again, 2 for 2 hours. So once that timer's set, this is where the patience part of the whole process begins. All right, so now that we had it set for 2 hours, we're gonna come back in another couple of hours, and through the magic of video, it's been 2 hours. And reminder, don't grab it with your bare hand. Pull it out and leave the lid on it. You're gonna leave it on there for, you guessed it, another 2 hours. All right, so this is the third of the twos that I talked about in the intro. After that 2 hours is up, we're going to take a look at the tobacco. You'll notice there's going to be a lot of moisture inside that jar. And that's actually a good thing. That's all the moisture that was inside the tobacco, and it comes out during the cooking process. We're going to put the lid back on, and we're going to do that as quickly as we can in this next step. The reason you're doing that is because this is where the real patience starts. You're going to wait 2 weeks, and that 2-week period is going to allow all that moisture that's trapped inside that jar to make its way back into the tobacco, right? I suppose if it does, for some reason, dry out a little bit too much, you could rehydrate it in whatever way you choose, but we're going to try to capture as much of that inside the jar as we can. So again, this is where the real waiting starts. 2 weeks, put it in the closet, don't touch it. I should also note, if you have a sous vide cooker, you can do the same process in a vacuum sealed bag, 200 degrees, same thing. That's it. That's how easy it is. Like I said, you got to have patience. You got to be able to wait for 2 weeks. Just a side note, the reason that they say to take the top off after it's waited for 2 weeks is because some people complain that it smells. I actually think it smells great. So I sometimes avoid that step altogether and go straight into the bowl. To me, it smells a little bit more like bread right after it comes out of the oven and right after you pop the top after the 2-week waiting period. So check back in a couple of weeks for the sampling video. I don't do tobacco reviews. My palate's not that great in terms of being able to describe things, but I can tell you what I like, and I'll share the unveiling in a couple of weeks with you. Don't forget to subscribe. It's a new channel. It's not high production, but I'm a tinkerer. When I go into hobbies, I tend to dive in head first and do a lot of stuff. I've made a couple of pipes, done a couple of these little projects, and would love to share them with y'all. Again, Road Glide Solely. See you next time.